Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're unpacking the anatomy of a presidential failure. Specifically, we're looking at the tragic and deeply controversial tenure of Franklin Pierce, the 14th president of the United States. He took the oath of office right when the country desperately needed a unifying leader. But, as we'll see, his time in the White House is widely remembered as an absolute disaster that helped pave the bloody road to the American Civil War. It's a truly fascinating paradox, isn't it? How exactly does a popular Northern Compromise candidate who was elected in a landslide on a platform of unity end up actually accelerating the fracturing of the nation? Well, we're going to explore how a man praised for his charm and good intentions found himself completely outmatched by the historical moment. So, the crucial point here is understanding exactly who Franklin Pierce was politically. He was what folks back then called a doughface, basically a Northern Democrat with strong Southern sympathies. Pierce genuinely believed the abolitionist movement was dangerous, like a fundamental threat to the sacred unity of the country. For him, the intense agitation against slavery was what was tearing America apart, not the actual institution of slavery itself. Keep that mindset in your back pocket because it is literally the master key to decoding his entire presidency. The rise of a dark horse. To get his presidency, we first have to look at his past. Born in a New Hampshire log cabin in 1804, the son of a Revolutionary War vet, Pierce climbed the political ladder incredibly fast after his days at Bowdoin College with his buddy, the novelist Nathaniel Hawthorne. He hit the state legislature in 1829, went to the U.S. House in 1833, and the Senate by 1837. He actually resigned in 1842 to practice law. But then, the Mexican-American War broke out. Pierce eagerly volunteered, serving as a brigadier general. But his military record? A bit complicated. During the Battle of Contreras, his horse tripped, pinned him, and severely injured his knee. The excruciating pain caused him to pass out, which led political rivals to unfairly brand him a coward for the rest of his career. Fast forward a bit. Despite being out of public office for a decade, Pierce magically emerges as the Democratic nominee in the 1852 election. Though, to be fair, it took 49 agonizing ballots to get there. He was the ultimate compromise choice, a real dark horse. The Democrats were totally fractured over slavery, but Pierce promised to maintain party unity and strictly enforce the Compromise of 1850. This middle-of-the-road appeasement strategy worked brilliantly. He absolutely crushed the Whig candidate, his former commander Winfield Scott, in a landslide. Tragedy before the oath. Right before he took office, everything in his life changed. In January 1853, literally weeks before the inauguration, Pierce, his wife Jane, and their 11-year-old son Benny were traveling by train in Massachusetts. The train derailed and rolled down an embankment. Franklin and Jane survived, but young Benny was crushed to death right in front of them. He was their third and final child to pass away. As you can imagine, this horrific tragedy completely shattered the incoming president and his wife. Listen to these words to the American people from his inaugural address. "You have summoned me in my weakness. You must sustain me by your strength." He actually delivered that entire address from memory and, uniquely, chose to affirm his oath on a law book instead of swearing on a Bible. He entered the presidency nervously exhausted, severely depressed, and pleading with the entire nation to just prop him up in his grief. This unbearable grief impacted the first couple in fundamentally different ways. Jane Pierce actually came to believe Benny's death was divine punishment for her husband's political ambitions. She largely abandoned her duties as First Lady, plunging the White House into this incredibly dark, somber mood. Franklin, on the other hand, just forced himself to bear the weight of his duty, trying to run a fractured country while internally hollowed out. Expansion and appeasement. With his personal life in tatters, Pierce faced a deeply fractured country. His main goal? Keep his fragile Democratic Party united. He figured he could do this by making everybody happy, handing out cabinet positions equally to anti-slavery Northerners and pro-slavery Southerners. He brought in guys like William Marcy for Secretary of State, and his close friend Jefferson Davis as Secretary of War. And amazingly, Pierce is the only president in U.S. history to keep his original cabinet entirely intact for a full 4 years. But outside that room, the attempt to placate extremists ended up wrecking the broader party, alienating allies and satisfying pretty much no one. In foreign policy, Pierce heavily aligned himself with the expansionist Young America movement. He felt that aggressively expanding U.S. territory would somehow unify the country. He oversaw the Gadsden Purchase, buying a huge chunk of land from Mexico for $10 million for a southern transcontinental railroad. He also backed trade treaties with Japan. But his expansionist eyes were set on a much closer, highly controversial target, Cuba. And this brilliantly illustrates where his expansionist dreams completely collided with the reality of a divided nation. His administration drafted a secret document called the Austin Manifesto, proposing the U.S. should buy Cuba from Spain or forcibly seize it if they refused. Well, it leaked to the press, and it was an absolute disaster. Northerners were outraged, viewing it as a blatant plot to annex new slave-holding territory just to empower the South. Pierce's reputation in the North was severely and permanently damaged.
The catalyst, bleeding Kansas.
But Cuba was really just a preview. The defining event of his presidency hit in 1854, when Senator Stephen Douglas pushed the Kansas-Nebraska Act to organize Western territories. To appease Southern politicians, the bill repealed the old Missouri Compromise, which had previously banned slavery up north. Instead, it brought in popular sovereignty, meaning local settlers would just vote and decide on slavery themselves. Pierce threw the full weight of his administration behind this to maintain party unity. Ironically, passing it polarized the nation, completely destroyed the Whigs as a national party, and directly birthed the Republicans. The press saw exactly what was coming. The New York Daily Times accurately predicted the act was plunging the country into a renewed agitation over slavery that would prove fatal to public peace. By reopening the slavery debate in the West, Pierce and Douglas basically lit a match right inside a powder keg. What followed was just outright chaos. Thousands of pro-slavery border ruffians flooded into Kansas from Missouri to illegally hijack the territorial elections. In response, anti-slavery free staters set up their own rival shadow government. And Pierce's reaction? He rigidly backed the pro-slavery legislature as the only legitimate government, dismissing the massive election fraud entirely. He even deployed federal troops to break up anti-slavery meetings. The territory descended into vicious guerrilla warfare, forever earning the name Bleeding Kansas. Post-presidency and legacy. So how did it all end for him? By 1856, even his own party had seen enough. Disappointed by his leadership, the Democrats actually denied him renomination. That made Pierce the first elected president ever dumped by his own party for a second term. He retired, and when the Civil War broke out, he became a fierce vocal critic of Abraham Lincoln, which made a lot of Northerners view him as a traitor. On top of all this, he struggled with severe alcoholism his entire life, ultimately dying of cirrhosis of the liver in 1869. Historian Larry Garra captures his tenure perfectly. He was president at a time that called for almost superhuman skills, yet he lacked such skills and never grew into the job. It's a really sobering assessment. Pierce was an ordinary guy with average political skills, placed in a moment of impossible historical weight, clinging to a vision of unity that was already dead. Now, what's really interesting here is how history judges him today. In almost every major poll of historians and scholars, Franklin Pierce consistently ranks at the absolute bottom of U.S. presidents. He's almost always in the bottom three, hanging out with Andrew Johnson and his immediate successor, James Buchanan. His policies, which were literally designed to prevent conflict, are universally seen as the exact things that accelerated the path to civil war. Which leaves us with a pretty provocative thought. Does the burden of a deeply divided nation truly require a leader with superhuman skills to hold it together? Or did Franklin Pierce's endless politics of appeasement, his insistence on compromising on deep moral crises just to keep a fragile peace, actually guarantee the bloody war that followed? It's a tough question, not just about the 1850s, but about how we handle deep divisions today. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and we'll catch you next time.